There is a lot of hype behind the new Sony WH-1000XM3 ANC headphones, and it's with good reason. The M3's got all of the great technology found in the M2s, improved on them, and packed them inside a much better body. But I know some people just can't afford to drop $350 on a pair of ANC headphones, or they might just be hesitant to upgrade from their M2s. So here's how the new Sony 1000XM3s compare to the older Sony 1000XM2s, how my 1000XM2s have held up after a year of heavy usage, and do you really need to upgrade to the 1000XM3s? The new Sony 1000XM2 are currently a year old now because they came out in September of 2017. Initially, they used to retail for $350 like the current 1000XM3s do now, but now the 1000XM2s are currently retailing for $298. If you want to pick either of these headphones up, I'll have links in the description below, and if you use the links, it really helps out the channel. I suggest you check them out because Sony's headphones routinely go on sale, so you might get lucky. And if you want to watch the full review on the Sony WH-1000XM3, click on the icon above. And also, check the numeric shelf down below. Everything on the 1000XM3 has been changed from the 1000XM2, even the accessories. The hard shell carrying case of the M3s is slightly larger than the M2's case. It has a color matching fabric front, and there's even a compartment on the inside for storing your cables. I like both cases just fine, but I will admit having that little storage compartment is pretty convenient. With the 1000XM2's case, I have to store my audio cable in the back pocket, so it doesn't look as clean as the 1000XM3. And speaking of the audio cable, one of the things that peeves me about the M3s is its included audio cable. It's much cheaper and shorter than the audio cable that comes included with the M2s. The M3's audio cable is the same as the WH-1000N's audio cable, and those headphones cost half as much. As a content creator, this is a big deal because with the M3's cable, I don't have as much slack, and I'm afraid it's going to wear out much faster. But the new USB-C to USB-A charging cable of the M3s feels much nicer than the M2's micro USB charging cable. I just wish it wasn't so short. Now we can actually start talking about the headphones. The first generation MDR1000X got a bad reputation because a lot of people suffered from cracking on the plastic body panels of the headband from seemingly normal wear. Even though I didn't experience cracked body panels when I had the OG 1000X, one of my friends did. But after a year of heavy usage on my 1000XM2, I still don't see any evidence of cracking on my headband. Plus, my headphones have to stretch a good amount because I do have a big head. But that's one of the biggest upgrades on the 1000XM3 from the 1000XM2. Build quality across the board has been improved. Tolerances are much tighter on the M3s, there's a lot less creaking when you flex the headband, and the ear cups pivot and swivel much smoother than the M2s. The headband on the M3s is also a little thinner than the headband on the M2s. But one of the most underrated changes on the M3s from the M2s is the exterior of the ear cups. The whole ear cup is now covered in soft touch material, which feels very nice when you hold these headphones, and the awful looking textured faux leather covering the ear cups on the M2s is finally gone. And finally, the only two physical buttons found on these two headphones have also been improved. But perhaps the most important difference between the 1000XM2 and the new 1000XM3 is the fit. The M3s have significantly more padding underneath its headband than the M2s. I would say it's a little more than doubled. But more importantly, the ear cups on the M3s are significantly more spacious than the ear cups on the M2s. I know that after a while you get used to the M2's cramped ear cups, but the M3's new ear cup design just spoil you. Anytime I was at the airport with the M2s and I saw someone wearing the Bose QC35s, I would think, I know I have the better tech, but I know your ears are more comfortable. But not anymore with the M3s. Since the ear cups on the M3s are bigger, and since there's less padding in contact with your skin, the M3s suffer from significantly less overheating than the M2s. And even after a year of heavy usage, wear and tear on the faux leather on the M2s is still pretty close to new. But even though the ear cups on the M3s are much more spacious than the ear cups on the M2s are much more low profile on your head, which just make them look all around better. Now, even though the 1000XM3 have better build quality, improved comfort, are 20 grams lighter, and just look better, I know that for some people that still won't constitute a reason for upgrading. When it comes to tech specs, the new 1000XM3s now charge via a USB-C port instead of a micro USB port like on the M2s, and you can only use this port for charging. Both the 1000XM3 and 1000XM2 are still rocking a 30-hour battery life, and that's with ANC turned on. You can squeeze a little bit more battery life out of them if you use them with ANC turned off. For me, the M2s usually last me about 2 weeks in between charges, but battery life on both of these headphones is still way above average compared to other ANC headphones out there. The only battery difference between the M2s and the M3s is fast charging. If you plug the M3s in for 10 minutes from a dead battery, you're going to get 5 hours of playback time versus the M2s, which are only going to get you 1 hour playback time. Even though the 1000XM3s have been upgraded to Bluetooth 4.2 from Bluetooth 4.1, they still perform the same as the M2s. The connection is stable, but there's still a little bit of latency when watching YouTube videos. You still have Sony's DSEE and LDAT technologies, and you can still only connect to one device at a time, which honestly is one of the biggest bummers on both of these headphones. Over the past year, the Sony 1000XM2 have been my gold standard when it came to active noise cancellation. They managed to block out the most amount of noise with very little to no cabin pressure. And that's why I would always compare other ANC headphones to the M2s. And believe it or not, the 1000XM3s actually managed to block out a little more noise than the 1000XM2s across the board. Both of these headphones have atmospheric pressure sensors built in, but the M3s have Sony's new QN1 processor, which analyzes the ambient sound, and it also has a built-in amplifier for your music.
Noise cancelling. Noise cancelling.
Most ANC headphones have no problem blocking out constant low-frequency sounds like road noise, but what made the 1000XM2 stand out for me was that they were also able to block out significantly more chatter than other headphones, all while still having very little cabin pressure. And I don't know how Sony did it, but the 1000XM3s do manage to block out a little more noise than the M2s. It's not a game-changing difference, but a difference nonetheless. But another thing I've always liked about the M2s over other ANC headphones is that they pick up very little wind noise, and this is thanks to the recessed ANC microphones. Since they aren't as exposed on either of these headphones, you get very little whooshing in the background of your music when you're using these headphones outdoors. When it comes to sound quality, the Sony 1000XM3 still sounds very similar to the 1000XM2. And that's not a bad thing. And thanks to Sony's Headphones app, you can adjust the EQ on either of these headphones so you can make them sound however you like, depending on the type of music you listen to. But the biggest difference between the sound of the M3 and M2 is that the bass on the M3 manages to get deeper and stays cleaner. You're not going to get bass head levels of bass where your head is rattling, but since it takes much more for the bass on the M3s to bottom out, it does provide an overall better listening experience. And to control the music playback on the 1000XM3s, you still have the same touch controls on the right ear cup like on the 1000XM2. And the touchpad on the M3s performs exactly the same as the M2s. And after using the touch controls on the M2s for almost a year now, it's become second nature to me. I'm indifferent when it comes to choosing between physical control buttons like on the Bose QC35 or using the touchpad on the M2s. But since the touchpad is one of the more accurate ones out there, I'm fine with either or. But still, my favorite feature of the touchpad on both of these headphones is quick attention. This feature is super handy when you are traveling. You can talk to people without having to take your headphones off. It's a very, very elegant solution. But one of the biggest upgrades the 1000XM2 got over the summer was Google Assistant integration. And the M3s also have this, but in order to use this feature, you have to sacrifice your NC ambient sound button, which does suck. But if you're a Google Assistant power user, then this feature comes in very handy. It's much more faster and efficient than pressing and holding on the touchpad. You just press and talk like this. Is Chick-fil-A open? Chick-fil-A sponsor me, please.
Chick-fil-A is normally open at this time on Mondays and closes at 10 p.m., but these hours may be affected by Labor Day.
And finally, the microphone on the 1000XM3 has also been improved from the microphone on the 1000XM2. There's less static and echoing. Because for comparison, whenever I took a phone call with the 1000XM2, people would always complain about the audio. So overall, the new Sony WH-1000XM3 have a whole bunch of new small upgrades that really do add up. The Sony 1000XM3 have better build quality, they fit better, they look better, their bass sounds better, and they block out a little more noise. But like I said in the full review, you don't really need to upgrade, but you'll be really happy if you did, mostly because of the fit and bass. But still, if you decide to stick with or pick up the Sony 1000XM2, then you'll still be getting what I think are the number 2 best ANC headphones right now. Because unless Bose or Sennheiser put something out, the title of number 1 best ANC headphones currently belongs to the Sony WH-1000XM3. Now remember, this isn't a full review on the Sony 1000XM3. For that, please watch the full review. Because even though I really like the 1000XM3s, they're still not perfect. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. Support the channel by clicking on the links down below, and I'll catch you next time.